this special Christmas episode of Raddest Rides for 80s action figures, we're going to talk about a surprisingly small group of specialized vehicles that could possibly help Santa get you those toys you asked for. So, stick around. Dorks and Dorkettes, and welcome to Nostalgia Syndrome. In this episode, we're going to talk about more of the raddest rides in 80s action figures. As you can tell by the snowy background, this is a Christmas episode, and we will be talking about a surprisingly small group of specialized vehicles that are perfect for the winter, or perfect for Santa to deliver your gifts. I'm sure you can guess without me saying that these are specialized snow vehicles or other modes of transportation through that powdery white stuff. And no, not that powdery white stuff. Anyway, like I was saying, it's surprisingly a very small group of vehicles that were made for the snow. The more I looked into it, I kept coming back to a couple pretty big toy lines that had snow-based vehicles. To me, it's a no-brainer. All action figure toy lines that had vehicles should have at least had one snow-based vehicle. Like an example, Masters of the Universe, one of the biggest toy lines of the 80s, and now actually, never had a snow vehicle. I mean, there were episodes of the cartoon that took place, in snowy locations, but they just drove around their normal vehicles. And, I mean, that's cool and all because they were made for any environment. But wouldn't it have been cool to have a specialized snow vehicle of some sort? Maybe it's just me, but I would have thought that was cool. Anyway, before we get started on the list, I do want to apologize that we are repeating a few toy lines. And believe me, there was nothing I could do about that if I wanted to, continue this theme for this episode. So, hopefully with a little bit more time and a little bit more research, maybe next year I will discover more snow vehicles, but until then, these are the 5 that I could find. Number 1 on the list comes from Kenner's Star Wars action figure line, more specifically the Empire Strikes Back. The vehicle was the MLC-3. The MLC-3, or Mobile Laser Cannon 3, which makes no sense because there's only 2 cannons on the vehicle, was part of Kenner's mini-rig, offshoot vehicle toy line that they created for The Empire Strikes Back. Now, the ones that they created for Empire Strikes Back all came out between 1981 and 1982. And I think their idea maybe behind it was to create a small, price-friendly vehicle that would help keep interest and bridge the gap until Lucas made his 3rd movie. And probably by this time, they had no idea what that 3rd movie was, so they kind of took some liberties and created these little vehicles. Now, the MLC-3 was a small, one-manned, 2-cannoned tank. It has little treaded molded wheels and this really neat dome bubble thing that you would put your one figure into and snap it down, and it had like a little bubble. To me, that was super awesome, and that just spoke classic sci-fi by having a glass bubble. Now, I have to say, and it was pretty surprising, but these actually made their way into Legends canon eventually through different comic books and things like that. So that's pretty cool that it, kind of grew a small legacy around it. I mean, so much, in fact, that Wedge Antilles piloted one of these things around Hoth to, take out scavengers and stuff, which is weird, because why would there just be scavengers on a snowy ice planet where there's like no life other than wampas and tauntauns and stuff? Anyway. Number 2 on the list was made by Hasbro in the year 1989 for the G.I. Joe toy line, and it was the Arctic Blast. Now, by the time 1989 rolled around, I kind of fell out of touch with G.I. Joe, so I don't have any recollections of this vehicle. And from what I've seen and read online, I have a lot of questions. Mind you, I'm not speaking negatively. I don't speak negatively about any toy, especially G.I. Joe. But, like I said, I have a few questions. Okay. Down to brass tacks. The Arctic Blast is a sled with large wheels that help propel it forward. That makes sense. I can see this thing coming down a snowy mountain, just full bore, just shooting forward, firing all of its, laser guns, machine guns, missiles, what have you, taking out whatever Cobra forces are lurking within, snowbanks and snowy forests or what have you. That all makes complete sense to me. But my one question is, if you were stuck outside in the snow, wouldn't you at least want to be in a vehicle with a roof? Doors, walls, anything? The Arctic Blast is pretty much just a frame with wheels, with guns and missiles attached to it, and a seat. That's it. I mean, whomever was piloting this, yeah, they're tough snow experts, Arctic adventurers, but come on. You don't want to die from hypothermia or exposure before you even get to the enemy. I mean, the vehicle came with a character named Windchill that on his file card says that he was, the G.I. Joe member Blizzard was marching around in the snow, ran into him, and he was like, I like snow, you like snow, do you want to join G.I. Joe? That simple. But it says right on the file card, Windchill loves to pilot armored Arctic vehicles. There ain't nothing armored about this. I mean, it's pretty much a glorified go-kart with huge knobby wheels and armaments. I mean, I started out by saying I had questions, plural, but I guess I only had one question, and that's why? Slap a roof on it, some doors, something. I mean, it would really suck to be traveling through the tundra, and by the time you get to Cobra, your hands are so frostbitten and numb that you can't even pilot this thing or fire any of the weapons, and yeah, you're just screwed. That wouldn't be fun. Now, I know, realistically, by 1989, Hasbro was trying to scale back and save a few bucks, so just pretty much making a plastic frame with some big wheels, some yellow weapons. I mean, I guess that saved them a few bucks and helped, get the toy line to go a few more years, but yeah, and again, I don't mean to say anything negative about G.I. Joe. I love G.I. Joe, but just looking at this realistically, no. You would never get me in one of these things out in a roaring snowstorm. Just, no. No thanks. Number 3 on the list, I feel like I'm kind of cheating. Because, yes, it's transportation through the snow. Albeit it was made specifically for one character in a toy line, and it wasn't even the main toy line for this cartoon. It was an offshoot toy line made by another toy company altogether. This was the mini Thundercat figures made by Kids Works in 1986. The snowy vehicle in which we are talking about is Snow Meow. The Snow Meow figure came in a little box set that came with the Snowman of Hook Mountain, his weapons, and a couple boulders. Yeah, I know. I guess they just had to fill up the box with something. But anyway, Yeah, I was a huge fan of the Snowman and Snow Meow, and I loved it whenever they were in the episodes of the cartoon. So, yeah, I always wanted this box set, and I always wanted the larger LJN Snowman figure. Now, the one thing this box set was sorely missing from what I can see was Snowman's awesome helmet. It should have been an easy addition to the box set, but c'est la vie, they didn't include it. And honestly, there's not a lot to say about this. I mean, these PVC figures were non-posable. The Snowman at least, came with his spear and shield, and he sat atop Snow Meow's saddle. That's about it. I mean, yeah, of course you can play with them just like you would a, plastic dinosaur figure or plastic army men, but that's the extent of it. I mean, to me, honestly, I would love to have this just as a shelf sitter. I mean, that's pretty much all it is, a glorified decoration, and that's awesome enough because they're awesome characters, and Snow Meow never got a proper release in the LJN series, so we never got like a big scaled, Battle Cat-esque Snow Meow. That would have been awesome. And I guess LJN just didn't have the gusto to keep moving forward and producing the vehicles and toys, and it never got made. Maybe they never had a plan to make it. I don't know, but definitely would have loved to have a big scale Snow Meow. I mean, maybe one day customize a Battle Cat if I ever get the Snowman figure, or I could just be happy enough trying to track down the little PVC figure. Anyway, big fan, love them. But like I said, I feel like I'm kind of cheating with it. But anyway, on to number 4. Number 4 on the list is something else that makes me feel like I am cheating. Okay, first things first, it comes from Star Wars, which we've already covered a Star Wars vehicle. Number 2, it's not really a vehicle at all. Yes, it's a mode of transportation, but not a vehicle. Now, I'm completely open to including mounts on these lists because I say they're rides, and you can definitely ride one of these. Anyway, again, from Kenner, 1981, this is the Tauntaun. Now, I need to say before we begin, in full transparency, full disclosure, I love Tauntauns so much. They're one of my favorite Star Wars things of all time. I mean, look at this. I have this little stuffed one. I love them. I love Tauntauns. And I think one of the reasons for that is when we first are introduced to our heroes in Empire Strikes Back, when it comes down on that snowfield, we see the Tauntaun run across, and as a kid, and even now, it's like, buckle up. We're in for a ride of something we have never seen before. Something that is completely alien. Something that ups the ante more than the original Star Wars did. And what better way to do it than to introduce these alien mounts that our heroes are riding around on? Anyway, I loved these little four-nostriled creatures so very much. And did you know that they're technically a reptile, even though they have fur, and they live in the snow? Very cool. Anyway, Kenner produced 2 different Tauntaun figures. One is your traditional, standing Tauntaun. The second one is one that simulates the, slicing the belly and shoving Luke in action feature. That one I never had. I had the original Tauntaun release, and I still do, albeit missing his saddle. Now, the one thing that was really cool about the Tauntaun was it had a trapdoor feature in his back. So you would set a character, through the trapdoor in there. And the saddle had molded legs that were to, represent the legs of the rider. So, honestly, anyone could be riding around on a Tauntaun. My G.I. Joe figures always were riding around on Tauntauns. Snow Job, yeah, when he wasn't piloting the Polar Battle Bear, he was riding around on a Tauntaun. I loved it so much. I got so much playability out of it by including it with multiple toy lines. And like I said, I still have the original one from when I was a kid. Of course, missing its accessories, but who cares? It's still a Tauntaun. The fifth and final entrant in the 9th installment of the Raddest Rides in 80s action figures, again, comes from G.I. Joe. This time, it comes from the year 1987, and it's part of an offshoot of the G.I. Joe team that I don't think a lot of people liked. That offshoot was Battle Force 2000, the vehicle, the Dominator. I have to say, honestly, I had a ton of Battle Force 2000 figures, and a couple of the vehicles. I think by this time, my family had a small uptick in, money at the moment, and were able to get me a lot of them around Christmas time, and these were the one things dominating the shelves, because either Hasbro was just pumping the pipeline full of Battle Force 2000, or a lot of people weren't buying them and they were still out on the shelves. Either way, this vehicle I didn't have, and it's actually pretty cool. The Dominator is a tank, a pretty nice tank at that. But what its special feature was that the outer layer of the tank would come off, the skis that were there would flip up, and you kind of had a little battle encampment, a wall of sorts. And the center part of the vehicle was its own little vehicle, its own little tank. Now, of course, the overarching feature of the Battle Force 2000 vehicles was that they all had something akin to this, that you could create the Battle Force 2000 Fortress out of all the vehicles. That's pretty cool. I mean, they're kind of taking a page out of Transformers with, having a combiner, if you will. A bunch of little things that create one big thing. And it being a play set was super awesome. Again, I didn't have all the vehicles, so I don't know in practicality sense how that all worked, but it looks kind of cool. I mean, it could have been better, of course, but it's really neat, and it's a great, experiment in what the G.I. Joe toys were capable of doing. Now, all the Battle Force 2000 vehicles came figure sold separately, so the character that went with the Dominator was Avalanche, who was the Battle Force 2000, snow expert, the Arctic adventurer of that little subgroup. And he's a pretty neat figure. We'll just throw a picture of him up here, even though he doesn't really have anything to do with the vehicle because he didn't come with it, but, he kind of went with it. You just had to buy him separately. Anyway, like I mentioned, this is the 9th installment of Raddest Rides in 80s action figures. And there's no signs of slowing down. Now, I know I say that for a lot of different topics, but honestly, not this one. Because I'm not even finished compiling a, master list, if you will, and I'm already up to 350 different vehicles. That's pretty cool. Very staggering. And not something you see a lot of nowadays. I mean, it's weird. It's like you have specialized, younger kid toys, the Imaginext, the Play School, the Fisher-Price toys come with vehicles, Paw Patrol or something like that. But it goes from that to nothing. I mean, yeah, of course, Mattel is putting out Masters of the Universe, reproduction vehicles, that's cool. The new He-Man cartoon has some vehicles, that's cool. But nothing really, is out there. I mean, I understand the financial reasons, but it's still a bummer. I mean, you can't even walk out of a store with a really nice action figure anymore for under 20 bucks. I mean, back in the day, like $5 for a figure was, whoa, now 20 something? So a vehicle, 40, 50 higher. So yeah, that's really hard to sell nowadays, and I get it. But still a major bummer. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this really forced theme of snow vehicles. I really had hoped, and I really researched to find some other and off-the-wall, action figure lines that had some snow-based vehicles, but there weren't any out there, which really surprised the crap out of me. So I apologize for double dipping in very popular toy franchises, but I had to do what I had to do to keep this Christmas theme flowing. So apologies, but I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy this episode, please give me a thumbs up. If you got something to say, please leave a comment. I love reading them, and I love getting back to everybody. And if you're new around here and you enjoyed this, or any of the episodes YouTube is recommending down here, please hit subscribe. And if you hit that little bell icon, you will be notified whenever there's a new episode. So anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. Keep being rad, and stay dorky.